Uh, Guy Deacon, you rang me last night as I was in the middle of a perilous journey. I was on a train going from West London to South London to watch a football match. So sorry I had to cut you off, but tell me where you are on your slightly more complex and more perilous journey.
Well, it's certainly more complex, although there are reasons for that, but it's not necessarily more perilous, I have to say. I'm currently in Angola, which has an incredibly bad reputation, but is quite brilliant, and the people are very friendly. It's very jolly. It's a beautiful place. I'm staying in the British Embassy, who are so supportive, and everything is as bad as good as it can get right now.
And the sun is shining so brightly that we can see it coming through the window. You're in the British Embassy in Luanda in Angola. Now, last time we spoke, you were in a pretty disastrous situation. You were very worried that your vehicle, a VW, had been irretrievably damaged. Something bad had happened with the suspension. So obviously something then good happened.
Well, Moses, who's the mechanic I discovered, was absolutely brilliant. And in the car park of where I was staying, put it all right, and it was a pretty well done job, given that he had about two spanners and a hammer, and that was about it. But once I got the spare parts, or he got the spare parts, he put it all together, and it was a brilliant job, well done. And I was well equipped then to travel south. And my son flew out to join me, to accompany me on my way down to what was going to be Brazzaville to get the next set of visas for Angola and all the rest of it. And the plan was that he would travel with me and drive for me much of the way, cross the border, and then fly back to Libreville, and then fly back to the UK after that, which was fine until we discovered his visa, which wasn't available when he arrived in the country anyway, because there was a bit of a cock up, was only for 1 week, incredibly, even though he was here for 2 weeks, which is deeply frustrating. So he couldn't actually get out of the country anyway.
So your son came out, but there were visa issues.
Huge visa issues, and it all comes down to the fact that if you want a job done properly, you've got to do it yourself. And of course, with Parkinson's, you can't do some of these things yourself. And administration in foreign lands and foreign languages, you have to rely upon other people. If they don't get it right, you're rather stuffed. So we discovered that we had this major problem and we couldn't get it sorted. So he ended up not joining me all the way, just drove down to the south of Gabon, and then turned around and came back up again, leaving me to carry on to the Republic of Congo by myself, which was not part of the plan, but actually was turned out to be all right because the roads, although they were rough, were dry. So I didn't get stuck. I went across some very rough roads for about 100 kilometers or so, but because they were dry, they weren't a problem. And I ended up at a petrol station where there was a ring road around a town called Delisi, which is a brilliant road, recently built presumably by the Chinese, deciding whether to go left towards Brazzaville or right towards Point Noir. And I chose by chance to go right towards Point Noir because I was thinking about going through Cabinda at that point, which is one of the ways to get across or down to the Democratic Republic of Congo and then across the river and into Angola. And my mind wasn't made up, but I knew there was a consul in Point Noir to go and talk to and get my visa sorted out. So that's why I went there to the coast.
For those of us less expert in the geography of Africa, what one has to remember is that there are two Congos. So that you were in the first one here, the Republic.
First one is the Republic of Congo, sometimes called Congo Brazzaville to avoid confusion, and that's to the north of the two, and generally north of the River Congo. And then there's the Democratic Republic of Congo, which used to be called Zaire, capital of which is Kinshasa, and that's the big lump of land south of the Congo, filling in the middle of Africa. Really, it's a huge, 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 huge country, but it has a slither of land each side of the River Congo towards the Atlantic Ocean, which you have to get across.
And also for those, like me, less educated about African politics, for example, the Democratic Republic of the Congo certainly has a pretty scary feel to it. Is it now a safe place to drive, as it were?
It's such a huge country that it's very different in different parts. The east of Congo, near a place called Goma and the Kivus, which is next door to Rwanda and Uganda, is really very bad, and you wouldn't want to go there. And that's where I worked before when I was with the UN. But the west is actually reasonably straightforward, and it's a completely different part of the world. It's thousands of miles away, and it's a relatively small, thin slither of land, which I got through it in 24 hours.
And then you were in where? Which border did you then cross?
Well, to go back a step, there were two ways of getting to the Democratic Republic of Congo from Congo. One is you can either take the direct route, which I thought was possible, but then somebody said to me it was worse than the route across from Gembu to Banyo, which is the one from Nigeria to Cameroon. I thought, oh my God, I don't want to do that. And the other way was through Cabinda, which is a little enclave which belongs to Angola, which is monitored. Well, it is part of Angola, but it has very good roads through it. So I decided to go for that, or at least to try and go for that. And I was advised by different people, many different things. One of which was it's no problem at all. The other of which was it's absolutely impossible. The other which was your visa will get you through with one entry only. The other was you'll no chance to buy two visas and they're quite expensive. So I had no idea what I was going to do at that time. And I decided to risk it and go down to the border with Cabinda and ask the question whether I could get through on a single entry visa. And when I got there, I suddenly discovered the machinery scooped me up. And before I knew it, I was into Cabinda without any choice almost. I was just being propelled along by experts and fixers and goodness knows what. But I found myself in Cabinda with my single entry passport, the Democratic Republic of Congo, so I'd be able to get out of Congo again. And that's why I thought I might end up in Kinshasa, which would have been dreadful. Anyway, that was all fine and dandy. I crossed Cabinda reasonably straightforwardly, ended up in the Democratic Republic of Congo, at which point you turn east to go to a place called Matadi, which has the only bridge across the Congo River. It's a suspension bridge, must have been built 30 or 40 years ago. And the town of Matadi sits right there. And what I hadn't realized was the Angolan border is literally about a mile from the bridge. So I thought that afternoon and evening, I drove across desert, actually, sand dunes and scrub and everything to get to Matadi, literally by myself. And I'll send you some photographs. And I got there and I thought, well, there's some funny noises coming from the car and I'm not very happy about them. So I better drive very carefully. Luckily, I hit a good bit of road and found myself in Matadi in no time at all. And again, I crossed the bridge, went to a petrol station, bought myself a croissant because they're brilliant. And total petrol stations have croissants and coffee and everything. And I thought, well, I might as well carry on going because there's no point stopping here. And I asked the question, which way is Angola? And they said, up the hill. So I went up the hill. And not a mile beyond where I was at the time, I found myself being scooped up by the Congolese emigration people. They said, oh, you want to go to Angola? I said, well, yes, I do. And before I knew it, I was being propelled through the system into Angola. And it turned out my visa, which is only one entry only, was absolutely fine. And there I was suddenly, as if by magic, in Angola with incredible ease. It was extraordinary. It took about 10 minutes to get through. And there were frightening stories about how much it would cost. And it didn't cost anything at all.
And then once in Angola, you made your way to Luanda, it appears with relative ease.
It was it was very easy for me because my vehicle was on the back of a truck. Because at that point I'd heard this rattling noise. I thought this is not a good sound, and I don't want to break down in the middle of Angola where I would know nobody and they speak Portuguese. So being a wise virgin, I thought to myself, I will get help now and find a lorry to transport me from here down to Luanda and save any damage I might do and get it fixed in Luanda before it gets really serious. And so you would expect me to find an AA truck with a ramp that goes up and down and all the rest of it, and you drive on the back of it and that's fine. Not a bit of it. This is a sort of a 30-meter Arctic truck, huge thing turned up. But eventually we got on the back of that, and it took 28 hours to drive from the border at Matadi down to Luanda. It should have taken about 14 or 15 hours, but because the truck was so huge and the road was really quite bad, he was a very good driver. He was very, very calm and very gentle about it. We just drove and drove and drove. And I eventually ended up at the British Embassy, which is where I am now, with a truck parked outside the front gate down a little windy street in Old Town Luanda at about midnight, which is very kind of the ambassador to be waiting for me.
And so what happens next?
Well, my vehicle is now being checked out, and luckily the problem was it would have been serious if I carried on myself. So I did exactly the right thing, and bits and pieces are being sort of tightened up and replaced, and goodness knows what. So that's absolutely fine, and that will be ready quite soon. And what I'm doing now is I've got some bits and pieces in Angola, which is a great place, But I'm going to go and meet my daughter in Zambia because I wanted to go there anyway and meet up with a chap called Guy Scott, who's got Parkinson's and interview him and everything. And so I had this plan. So I'm going to fly across to Zambia, spend some time there, interviewing people, meeting people, and having a bit of a holiday, to be honest. And then coming back over and then carrying on the journey after that. But no, the vehicle should be ready this afternoon or tomorrow, which is great. I'll be able to park it at the embassy, so it'll be secure. And the next couple of weeks should be rather relaxed and rather enjoyable.
Now, it sounds like on this stretch, you've been focused on just getting on with it quite successfully, rather than doing more media appearances around Parkinson's. Is that right?
It is. Well, I've been pretty focused on getting through Angola because there were so many counter views on how to do it, and it so occupies your mind. And there's so many bad things said about Angola. You simply haven't got time to go and concentrate on media. And I wasn't in the right place. And if I'd been in Brazzaville or Kinshasa, perhaps I could have done, but I wasn't. I was in Pointe Noire, and it's all very French, and I speak some French, but not very well. And finding a media outlet in Pointe Noire was going to be really hard, and likewise in the DRC. So I just decided not to, just to get through it. And I've got some stuff happening here in Angola, Luanda, in the next couple of days. So I'm going to resume the campaigning bit.
And how is your Parkinson's? How are you feeling? How are the symptoms?
It's taken me a long time to do it, and it sounds very obvious, but I've kind of worked out when I'm going to be good and when I'm going to be bad. And I've worked out when the windows I need to be ready for. So I have a good 2 hours in the morning, a good 2 hours in the afternoon, a good 2 hours in the evening. So I have 6 hours I can rely upon during the day. The rest of the time, I'm either building up to being up to it or declining again. So I have to plan things quite carefully, but it's okay. It's okay, and it's having the problem is stress, as you will imagine, is what really triggers my condition. And being in a stress-less environment now makes a heck of a difference, because I can relax, everything's easy. I'm being looked after really well by the people here. My vehicle is not badly damaged as I thought it was going to be. There's a really good bloke who said it'll be fixed tomorrow, and there's no drama. And it's all good.
I just had a look on Google Maps. It says from here to Cape Town, about 40 hours. So you should be there by the end of in a week or so. Or is that a bit optimistic?
I could be. I could be. And there's many a slip between cup and lip. And I've thought to myself at the time, I'm not going to publish my diary because A, you wouldn't be able to read it, and B, it doesn't make good reading anyway. But I've thought to myself, if I could just get in the car and drive and get this over and done with, then I would. But I'm literally approaching the bit which is going to be best now, when it's going to be Southern Africa, where it's warm and hot occasionally, big views, game to visit, animals to see, waterfalls to inspect. All those are really good things. Roads will be good. Everything just starts to get better from this point on. So I'm going to not rush it. I'm going to enjoy it to the very, very full, because it's this is kind of what I dreamt about all the time. I knew that all the places I've been to recently would be difficult, and the visas would be difficult, and the borders would be difficult, and the people would be not difficult on purpose, but it'd be difficult to deal with them. So I knew it was going to be a difficult job. But now is when it starts to get easy again.